If you haven't noticed, Scott Snyder, the writer behind Absolute Batman and really the mastermind behind the entire Absolute universe, is making the rounds. He's going out there talking about what his Absolute Batman is all about, what his Absolute universe is all about, and giving the hard sell. And I must say, while I do appreciate it, and I like information, we get to talk about it, and I get to have thoughts about the comic book before it even comes out, I don't think he needs to do this. I don't think anyone does. I think Absolute Batman, of all the titles, really just kind of sells itself. You see the character, you see the cover, you get the Jim Lee variant cover on there, and certainly a bunch of other variant covers out there, and I think it kind of just sells itself. But I do appreciate the information, but I think this will be a pretty darn big hit. As I mentioned, I think within a 12 to 18 month time frame, especially with like an Absolute Superman, which I think people will not like, because I don't think Superman is as malleable as a Batman character is. And I do think Wonder Woman, because Kelly Thompson is the writer, will kind of nosedive in popularity and kind of be phased out. I think Batman, Absolute Batman that is, has some staying power to him because the character is very malleable. The idea behind the character can be put into different configurations and kind of work itself out. And certainly Scott Snyder does have a pedigree, the character of Batman, and we are introducing a lot of people, maybe that don't know who Nick Dragotta is, to what a phenomenal artist Nick Dragotta is. He's super duper awesome. If you've never read East of West with Jonathan Hickman, fantastic stuff. I believe he illustrated the entire series, and it's a really cool story out there. Nick Dragotta is the truth. He slaps. That's what the young people say. Nick Dragotta slaps on art. That's how good it is, so it's going to look like $1 million. Do I have issues with the logo? Absolutely. Do I think the character is too big? Yes. Do I think Batman should be walking the streets of Gotham with a battle axe? Not particularly. But all that being said, I am very, very curious, and certainly with the information that we have here today, I think other people will be curious as well. Let's see what all the fuss is about and what Mr. Snyder has been talking about when he's making the rounds. In the Absolute universe, Bruce Wayne's parents have a different story. His family never had any money. His mother works in the mayor's office. His father wanted to be a doctor but ended up as a teacher. Bruce Wayne grew up in Crime Alley, making friends with people who would, in the standard DC universe, be his enemies, as they all grew up in the same neighborhood. He's such a big dude, partially because he doesn't have to pretend to be suave or wear a tuxedo. Something traumatizing happens with his parents when he is young that makes him want to affect change. He believes he can do this even though he has nothing and comes from nothing. And there you go. He's downtrodden. He's the lowest of the low. He's actually going to be growing up in Crime Alley itself. The line about he's such a big dude because he doesn't have to wear tuxedos does not make any sense to me, but perhaps that was taken out of context. And there was more of a coherent meaning to it when Scott Snyder was talking about it. Obviously, this is all being taken from his many appearances on the YouTubes and podcasts and all that kind of stuff that he's making right now to kind of give the hard sell on Batman. So I don't know what that means. I am flustered. I will say the character is absolutely large. And we've got some images that I'll show here in a second, and some of my thoughts on being so large and why it might not be the greatest idea. Bruce Wayne is going to grow up in Crime Alley. He's not going to be rich. He's not going to be from a family of great means, which will be a big-time status quo change for the character. Most interesting in there is that Bruce Wayne will grow up and have friends that would, in the DC Prime universe, end up being his villains. And I'm assuming one of his friends will be Little Edward Nygma. Obviously, he would grow up to be the Riddler, maybe a Harvey Dent, who might have career aspirations as being the DA of Gotham and maybe a big political power, also known as Two-Face. Maybe we'll get some Oswald Cobblepot in there. You know, there's a lot of characters I guess you could throw in there as youngsters. I hope they don't try and do Joker, because I don't think that would work. Joker is supposed to be, you know, the ultimate agent of chaos. Although in this universe, that might not be necessary, because I think that's more the role that Batman's going to play. And I do think, well, we do know when Batman gets older, the first main villain is going to be Black Mask. And he's going to represent the system. The thing that Bruce Wayne has essentially been a part of, but fighting against his entire life within the pages of DC Comics. So there'll be a role reversal to where they will have much more political stroke and be able to, you know, apply pressure within the city to get what they want, while Batman, Bruce Wayne, essentially has none of that capability. He's going to have to do it all on his own, and he's not going to be the world's greatest detective. It sounds like he will be not a detective whatsoever. He's just mostly going to be an engineer. He is the agent of chaos, a monkey wrench in the system, and the very thing some of his villains claim to be in the main universe. Instead of being law and order, this absolute Batman fights against the system and against money. The villains have resources, not him, but absolute Batman still won't kill. He's an idealist who wants to be a symbol that things can be different and can change. The only difference is that he doesn't have the resources. Villains have much more than he does, and he's not in a place of privilege, so he's got to be more of a guerrilla fighter with stash houses all over the city. Well, it's a good thing that we're going to wipe that privilege away from the character, even though that's one of the things that makes him interesting, is his place in society, and the fact that he's doing this at night, which would get him in a lot of trouble, and certainly would make enormous enemies out of the people that he's hobnobbing with at night. It makes an interesting juxtaposition with the character. It makes him much more layered and interesting. I think that's one of the reasons Batman has endured all these years. A similar dynamic obviously goes with Iron Man, to where he's a man of great privilege, a man of great wealth. Of course, Iron Man is also a supreme genius, and he's earned his own share of money as well. It's not just his family's wealth that he's spending. But can a man like that truly be selfless? That's part of the journey of the character, and part of the character exploration that's been interesting. You're going to remove that from Batman because having money is bad, which is fine. A Batman that didn't grow up with lots of money, having to rely on his own engineering skills that he likely developed on his own. Maybe he was in shop class in high school like I was. Maybe he took welding. I remember doing that. That was all lots of fun. And they keep talking about he doesn't have resources. I feel like they keep contradicting themselves when they say that. Money isn't the only resource in the world. Having the ability to make a cape full of metal that can grab people is a resource. You know what I mean? Being able to make a detachable battle axe from your chest is, in fact, a resource. Having stash houses all over the city are resources. It sounds like he does have resources. They're just not the normal resources that you would expect from him. And a lot of times in modern Batman, especially, I find it grating that he never does any detective work because he has so many resources out there regarding like advanced technology that solve all of his problems for him. He never even has to do anything. It's like computer analyze, and it gives him the answer. He's like, computer, look at the last 5 years of children that were kidnapped with red hair. Oh my goodness, it was this person that did it all along, and it kind of just solves the case for him, which is incredibly boring. So I don't mind that being ripped away from the character. That isn't like the worst thing in the world to happen, where he doesn't just have a deus ex machina answering all his questions. But I do think, intrinsically speaking, being a detective is part of the makeup of Batman, because he's very curious and he wants to solve cases. He wants to solve unsolvable cases, and that's one of the things that makes Batman really cool. You know, his determination, the fact that he can hit a dead end and still kind of make it through there using his own wit and stuff. He won't have that, but he will have his engineering background, I guess, to fall back on, which will be of great use to him, and he'll be able to make gadgets. Don't know that we're going to be getting like batarangs and stuff like that. It doesn't seem like he needs them. You know, you see the pictures and his cape is just going out there and grabbing people. Also in the images that I showed you there from Nick Dragotta, who's absolutely fantastic. When Batman is standing up and just kind of overlooking the city, because of his size and the girth of the costume, he looks incredibly, the word I would use is dumpy. You know what I mean? He looks like a half man, half elephant hybrid or something that would have no agility whatsoever. And he just kind of looks like he's there. You know what I mean? He's not on the balls and the feet or anything. When you get the other image that was next to it, where he's kind of like crouching over, it looks much better. So hopefully Nick Dragotta does not have Batman in the suit, like just standing there too often, because he does look kind of like a lump of shit. Like he wouldn't be very capable. And I don't think that's a very becoming look for the character whatsoever. Making him this large might have been an issue, but we shall see how it plays out. And if anybody's going to make it work and make it really, really cool, I do believe Nick Dragotta's got the chops to do it, because that boy slaps. Am I right? We know he slaps. Next up, let's get to Alfred, because he will be there, but it will be a very different Alfred, almost unrecognizable. Alfred is seen as a main character of the first arc. He's been around the world, is jaded, and as part of an MI6 mission, comes to Gotham, where he crashes into Bruce, this crazy idealistic primal force that Alfred believes is going to get murdered in 2 minutes. But this Bruce keeps inspiring Alfred to believe that maybe there is a way to act in the world and not be morally compromised. Not morally compromised, I think, is a bit of a stretch, because we've seen the art by Batman, and he certainly has had the privilege stripped away from him. But it also seems like he's amped up the violence a little bit. Like he might be a more violent version of Batman, which I would say is a morally compromised individual, because he is, from what we've seen, literally beating the shit out of people a lot. And he's, and he's raging against the system while beating up the people that the system is holding down. It could be a weird juxtaposition for the character and put him in a moral quandary, unless he's only beating up rich people that are the ones that are holding people down in the system. So it could get a little weird there. You got to have Alfred there. Obviously, he's not rich. His family doesn't have means. Alfred can't be a butler. Alfred does have a past story. He's basically being like a spy type of character when he first came up in England, eventually settling down as a butler for the Wayne family and all that kind of stuff. So Alfred as an MI6 agent that's jaded, that is probably a little too war-weary, seen a little too many battles, survived too many skirmishes, that is completely cynical against the world, feeling like there's nothing there, there's no hope. And maybe this young Bruce Wayne can provide hope. He finds him, he discovers him, realizes there's a connection between him and the Black Mask gang that he doesn't know about, knows that he's out there doing stuff, and realizes he's going to be able to get him to his ultimate objective, and along the way recognizing that Bruce is a man of moral fortitude, that maybe there's a brighter day tomorrow or something like that. And that's what I imagine is going to happen with Alfred. And after the first story arc, they will not be master and servant, as a butler or whatever, but he will in fact be his... I don't think they're going to work together. I don't think it's going to be like Batman and Robin, but he will be another resource that certainly has access to lots of information, classified information on the things going around the world, because he's in the system for MI6 and will be able to aid Bruce Wayne and maybe answer questions along the line. So I'm not expecting that we're going to see Alfred full-time here after the first story arc, but I could be completely wrong. Alfred might say, fuck it, I'm putting in my retirement paperwork and I'm moving down to Crime Alley with my best friend Bruce. We're going to be Rubies. That could also be the case, but I imagine it's actually the latter. I think this Bruce is actually going to be a loner that turns to Alfred for guidance and advice and information from time to time, and then Alfred, obviously turns to Bruce to tone down the cynicism and provide a little bit of hope that maybe there are other people out there wanting to do the right thing, and not everyone is looking out for themselves. We don't only have Batman information, although it's mostly Batman information. Somebody else has been out there with the other Absolute series that I think has potential if it didn't have Kelly Thompson on it, because I do think the idea behind Absolute Wonder Woman is easily the best one that I've had details about. It's the one that has the best chance to work, like story-wise, for the character. I just think they got the wrong writer. Did they get the wrong artist? Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman is published by DC Comics in October as part of a new shared continuity reinvention of the DC Comics universe. And on her Substack newsletter, Kelly Thompson has been posting snippets, including Wonder Woman with a protective face mask. She adds, "We were sort of waiting on approval from DC to show some of Hayden's absolutely spectacular interiors, and we finally got the go-ahead, so I've selected a few not too spoilery black and white images from issue 1 to share." A couple of these images actually look pretty good, but a couple of them look a little shaky. I think they're going for an aesthetic in the Absolute universe that is not sleek, that has a grittiness to it. And I imagine that's why they went out and hired Hayden Sherman. Also because Hayden Sherman, I believe, was an artist on a couple of Scott Snyder projects. So obviously he had a working relationship with Scott Snyder, the guy that's in charge of Best Jacket Press or whatever that's called. And he would have known what he was. He was a known quantity, that what he could bring to the table. I'm a little bit surprised they went with him on the third most high-profile book out there. I could think of a handful of artists that have a bigger name, and certainly with the art that I've seen from Hayden Sherman, have a better style fit for Wonder Woman, and I think even the Absolute Universe. But obviously, they would disagree with me, and obviously they've gone with him. But some of those look kind of rough. Some of those make Diana not look so great. I am intrigued by the war mask that she's wearing. Interesting stuff there. And I do think the concept itself is good. Can Kelly Thompson pull it off? She couldn't pull off Scarlet. And Scarlet kind of sells itself, and it was a part of a universe that was very successful that people were interested in, and she still kind of dropped the ball. She made the Arashikage clan not cool, which I think is difficult, and she managed to do that. Birds of Prey is an enormous wreck. If you go and read that, it's basically incomprehensible. But you do have Mr. and Mrs. X out there that happened, what, like 6 years ago? Something like that. And that wasn't bad. So not everything Kelly has done is terrible, but a lot of it has been. Can she pull off Absolute Wonder Woman? Not really sure. I think she should have chosen better shots from Hayden Sherman, maybe bigger panels or something. Obviously, she didn't want to give away spoilers, but it doesn't give you the most hope that this is going to look stellar like the Nick Dragotta Batman stuff, because it's certainly not that, or the Rafa Sandoval Absolute Superman stuff, which looks great, but I have a lot of misgivings about that. So there you go. Kelly Thompson, Hayden Sherman, a little sneak peek regarding the art that's going to be on there. What do you guys think? Because I think it looks a little iffy. One of them, maybe two of them look pretty decent. The other two, you're going, I don't know, man. We'll see how it goes. Lots of new information regarding Absolute Batman, and certainly a little bit of new information regarding Absolute Wonder Woman with some sneak peek on the art there. To appreciate your time, we're certainly going to be covering the Absolute Universe in full right here on Think Critical YouTube, and certainly also on Think Critical Patreon. If you would like an honest assessment of all of this and to support me and my mission here on YouTube, you come visit me on Patreon, and I give you lots of extra stuff. Extra podcasts, extra videos, there's polls there. There's all kinds of stuff that we give you for helping us stay right here on YouTube. Really appreciate that. And if you're interested, there's a link in the video description.